Wow. What a moment. What a moment. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the what? The Unit Talk? Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. I don't know what on earth is going on with me this morning. I'm all day now. I'm going away this weekend. Clearly my brain has decided to just lift out of my head and run off ahead of me because I can't speak. I can't speak minutes into this show. Good morning to you all. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. This is, as I mentioned, the international break, and the fact that you still manage to tune in each morning means a hell of a lot. So thank you so much to you all. Really appreciate so many of you being here. Glenn, good morning to you, to Carl, to Cam, Olawale, Arasilki, Granddaddy Gooner, Paul, Kim, Brad, Rob, Paul, Aaron, Ans, Tom, Chernal, Stevie. We've got Andy and Paul and Peter. We've got Carlton and Ken and Oliver and Barry T and Glenn and Bakary. Lasagna, Maximius, we've got Andy, we've got Temi, we've got Akinyemi. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much to you all for tuning in. Do make sure you drop a like on the video. Do make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. And of course, continue to join us every single morning and make this a part of, indeed, every single start to your day. And Owen as well in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. Always. Let's jump, though, into today's stories. Only a few to discuss. We start with Calafiori, of course, yesterday, day before yesterday, in fact, he suffered a slip in Italy's game against Germany, going down awkwardly on the wet surface and twisting quite awkwardly his knee. Reports in Italy suggest that he is going to be out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's their suggestion, that there's not a serious knee problem, but that he will be out for around 2 to 3 weeks, of course, which would mean that he may be missing for that first leg against Real Madrid in a week's time, or just over a week's time, I guess. We've got Fulham. Second week would encapsulate Everton and the first leg against Real Madrid. The third week would encapsulate Brentford and potentially the away leg against Real Madrid as well. So we'll see if indeed Calafiori makes it back. But as we did talk about quite a bit in yesterday's show, there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of depth on the left-hand side of the defence. So if we were to lose a player for any period of time, that I think is the most secure place that we currently have. And we'll talk about another one of our options now in just a minute. But Gabriel Magalhaes also is returning after picking up not an injury, you'll be glad to know, but picking up a suspension for Brazil. Of course, Brazil playing currently in their kind of World Cup qualifier. I really cannot speak this morning. It's absolutely horrendous, isn't it? Playing in their World Cup qualifiers. Yesterday they won 2-1 over Colombia. Gabriel, though, getting a yellow means that he is suspended for the next game and is due to return. So Gabriel Magalhaes not injured. I guess this is kind of like the best case scenario, really, what we could have expected, is it not? Because I think that if you want a player to come back early, it's because they're not injured. Like, this is the best case scenario for any player, I think, going on international duty, is that they return early, fit and fine, and can even get some extra rest in ahead of the upcoming games. And that's exactly what will happen for Gabriel Magalhaes, which is obviously really, really positive news. But the most positive news of yesterday was this brilliant moment. Miles Lewis-Skelly scoring on his England debut. It's not even like this is the type of goal that I've come to expect from him. Obviously, he's playing under a new coach in Thomas Tuchel, and there's different styles of play. And this is why I was so keen for him to get this call up, because I think it's important for players to broaden their abilities to play under different coaches, to strengthen their ability, of course, as well. But the fact that he makes the run and then the finish as well underneath Strakosha's legs is just so good. It's such a brilliant finish and run, and everything about it was just perfect. So good. What a moment. If you listen, just be quiet for a second. And if you listen really, really carefully, you can actually hear the tears falling to the ground among all the racists in the country. Can you hear that? It's only very quiet, but you can just about hear the little splash as they hit the ground, as Lewis-Skelly's fantastic clinical finish hit the back of that net. What a glorious day. Brilliant for him. Massive congratulations to Miles, all his family, of course, as well. And to Arsenal, who have developed an absolutely fantastic young player, a glorious young player, who, of course, now is, I mean, England have struggled with left backs over the years, but maybe we finally got one. Maybe we finally got a left back that can take that position forwards and make it into something different, because he is very different to, the Luke Shaws, the Ben Chilwells of this world. He's a different type of player. He's a midfielder at the end of the day, and he came through the Arsenal Academy playing midfield. He did play left back as well for the youth teams, as Arteta kind of spotted that ability in him, and they were short in that left back position also in the academy, so ended up playing there as well. But it seems to be such a brilliant kind of discovery, if you like, and almost something of an accident that he's kind of stumbled into this left back role, both at youth and senior level. And yeah, brilliant. Owen says his face when Harry came to give him a hug. He's a Gooner through and through. It's conflicting, isn't it? You've got kind of the antithesis of Arsenal coming to give you a hug on England level. But, I'm club over country any day of the week, but I can't stand those people that turn around and say, "Oh, I could never celebrate an England goal if Harry Kane scores." it's so different. It's so incredibly different to what everything else is. Right, let's jump to part 2, shall we? And some of your questions and more right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show. We jump into the chat box. We tackle some of your questions, some of your thoughts and feelings around a lot of the different topics that we've got to discuss today. So if you want to get a comment into the chat, now is your time to do so, and we'll do our best to tackle it. So let's do that. Rowan says, do we still see Lewis-Skelly as a midfielder? Or is he now very much a left back? Well, if he continues on this thread, we're not going to be given much choice. To be fair, we're not going to be given much choice at all when it comes to deciding whether or not he's a midfielder or a left back, because he's making that left back very much his own. I think he still has got a lot to give. I think his versatility is going to be, of a big help to us, I think, and of a big benefit to us, but we can't forego what we're seeing on the pitch, which is a absolutely astonishingly impressive player right now at such a young age as well. Let's go to Rand said MLS's midfield career is done. He's destined to be a left back. So yeah, I am not surprised that a lot of people feel this way, to be honest. I'm not surprised that a lot of people feel that he's just going to be the left back now moving forwards, and that we're not going to see him play in any other position. There's a good chance that might happen. James says, does Miles have a song yet? He definitely needs one. What a talent. I don't know. Can you turn the Saka and Smith Rowe song into something similar? Can't say just Skelly, because that would be, I think, a bit disrespectful to both of his parents, of course, that have helped raise such a brilliant young player. So yeah, 49 Lewis-Skelly. Oh, that's quite cool. Yeah, does play with number 49, doesn't he? So 49 Lewis-Skelly. That's quite cool. The only issue I have with that is that is already a brilliant song on its own, and it's about the unbeaten run. And I quite like the purity of the unbeaten run song in its own self. So I feel as though if you're merging the two, would the other one no longer ever be sung again? I see what you're saying, but yeah, I can't feel like and I've been to like every game this season. I feel like I can't remember him that even being sung. But a lot of you are saying in the chat box that is what's sung for Lewis-Skelly. It can't have been sung too many times, but as I said, I've been to pretty much every single game this season, and I'm just trying to think. I can't remember the song being sung. Maybe I was busy writing. Owen says, I shared a pic of Odegaard's ankle while coming on against PSV. It's massive. Is he playing through something that he shouldn't be? I mean, obviously, we are very short, Owen, so there's a good chance that maybe he is playing through a period where he's playing through something he shouldn't. What I would say is that sometimes after you do suffer injuries, it takes a long, long time for swelling to go down. For certain, I remember when I did my ankle ligaments, and my ankles were swollen for like 2 years, and I wasn't even playing football every week. So yeah, but I see that I've just gone on your Twitter feed, and I see what you mean. But yeah, it does look quite swollen, doesn't it, compared to his other one? Maybe it's just because he's got it like where he's kind of kneeling down, but it's quite a significant swelling that's gone on there. But yeah, swelling can last a long, long time, and obviously if you're constantly playing as well, it's never going to have that ability to recover. Akinyemi says, I'm so excited. This is the first time Tom is calling my name while welcoming us all. I'm going to save this as my caller tunes. Well, thank you so much, mate, for tuning in, and welcome to this TGT family that we call our own. Granddaddy Gooner Paul says, will the hate towards Arsenal stop when we win the World Cup with 5 Arsenal players? Probably not, mate. I think you could win the World Cup with 11 Arsenal players in the starting 11, and the hate would still go on. Steve says, Carragher, Cundy and company with their spiteful comments set the narratives for Miles Lewis-Skelly's hate, in my opinion. I just wish media personalities would think a little bit before slating youngsters. Yeah, it's not the first time that we've seen certain individuals do this, is it? It's not the first time we've seen these things happen. It's sadly been a very common theme. Carragher talking complete rubbish about Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri and the dressing room situation. It's just people just don't do their research before they spout opinions on some of the biggest platforms around. Do your research. Learn your facts before you spread disinformation. Is arguably the biggest problem currently facing our time online at the moment. And it's ridiculous that these things are able to be said, and with full chest, as if they're true like facts when they're not. Odin's Raven says, Miles Lewis-Skelly, yeah. Come on, the old dance. I feel like we can come up with something really good for Lewis-Skelly. I'm not going to be that Liverpool fan, that Liverpool fan that sings loads of songs for attention. But I think something needs to be created more specific. I like the Lewis-Skelly one. Sorry, I like the 49 one, but I almost feel like the 49 one is its own thing. Should we conflate the two? I don't know. Major Lee says, Rishi's slit reminds me of Tommy's versus Sporting a couple of seasons ago. Thankfully, it doesn't seem the damage is anywhere close to how bad Tomiyasu's was then. So that's a positive thing. Matt says, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard about Odegaard having a surgery after the end of the season. I sincerely hope that isn't the case, but that would be awful and perhaps a little unsurprising. Izu says, would you take Isak for 130 million or Barcola and Sesko for 130? Oh, Barcola and Sesko. I think Barcola and Sesko, mate. I think I'd take those two. Because the thing with Isak is it's one player who has the history of his injuries, right? And if you're signing 2 top players for that amount of money instead, who don't have the injury presence that Isak does, or at least I don't think Barcola does. Sesko certainly doesn't. Have a quick check on Barcola's injury record, shall I? Just to see. No, he doesn't. He's missed 4 games through injury his entire career at the age of 22. So, no. And if you have a look at Sesko as well, just a quick check on his injury situation. Again, he hasn't missed a game through injury since February 2022. Was the last time he missed a game through injury. So, yeah, from that perspective, I'm very much of the mind to go for Sesko and Barcola, mate. Jack says, after Dowman, who do you think will be the next person to break through from HLN? There is, I'll be very honest. Arsenal have been very lucky with the number of players that have broken through into the first team in recent years at the level that we're playing at. Think about Liverpool and Manchester City, right? Think about how many players genuinely break through and become regular or get like as many appearances as some of our youngsters. Think about how many appearances Willock and Iwobi got, and now Saka and Smith Rowe and Nketiah and Nelson. Think how many appearances those players have made. Now we've got Lewis-Skelly and Waneri. Got another player, Max Dowman, coming through as well. Think about how many times we've seen Man City. You've got Rico Lewis, you've got Phil Foden. And beyond that, you've got some players coming through at the moment. But beyond that, it's not many. For Liverpool, you've got Harvey Elliott, you've got Connor Bradley. Am I forgetting anyone? Quansah. But as I say, it's not the idea that we could have even more coming through. You know, we know Josh Nichols is talented. We know that Lewis-Skelly and Waneri already through at the moment. We know that just looking down the list as well, Sebastian Ferdinand, Osman Kamara, Louis Zasevich, John, Andre Harriman, Anus. You know, it's definitely these players are very much in the minds of the Arsenal coaches at that age level, and there's a lot of hope for some of these as well. Mike says, can you name all in Arsenal's squad in homegrown status? I think they keep Martinelli over Trossard with all age and stuff, considering he is homegrown. He's homegrown for the Premier League. I think it's slightly different for UEFA competition. So David Raya is homegrown. Saliba would count as homegrown. Ben White is homegrown. Declan Rice is homegrown. Saka is homegrown. Martinelli is homegrown. Obviously Sterling is, but he'll be leaving at the end of the season. Carl Hein is homegrown as well. Waneri and Lewis-Skelly are, of course, homegrown as well. So you've got two. There is no homegrown quota. I always need to stress this point. I feel like we do this every year. There's always someone in the chat that says, no, there is a homegrown quota. And I'm like, no, there's not a homegrown quota. Marley Salmon, yes, another exciting young defender coming through. A lot of highly thoughts about him. Rich says, I think Saliba's loan spells make him not homegrown. No, that's not how it works. You just need to be at a club in England for 3 years before the age of 21, which is what Saliba is. Despite going on loan, doesn't matter. The loans do not have any impact on your homegrown status. But yeah, the non-homegrown quota is that you can have a maximum of 17 non-homegrown players. It doesn't mean that you have to have, therefore, 8 homegrown players, because that would be, therefore, a homegrown quota. But no, you can have a maximum of 17 non-homegrown players in a squad, in a 25-man squad. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But just don't get those two confused. As I say, there's no homegrown quota. There's just a non-homegrown quota, which you must not exceed. Let's scroll up a little bit more into the chat. Curtis Jones. Yes, another player. Trent. I forgot Trent. Goodness gracious me. Over the last 5 years. So I guess Liverpool and Arsenal kind of similar. City, much less so. Chelsea, of course, much less so. United have through, I think, more so desperation because their transfers have been so bad. But yes, Mikel Merino is not homegrown, is he? I know he went to Newcastle, but I don't think he went there at a certain age where he would count as homegrown. I don't think he was there for long enough. Certainly not. No, he was only there for 2 years. So he will not count as homegrown, I'm afraid. And he weren't there at the ages that you needed to be. Arthur said, I thought it was a 30-man squad. No, 25 at the moment. I imagine it might extend at some point, but it's 25-man squad at the moment. Nick says, how was Rashford needed for experience over Ethan when they were playing Albania? That's a perfect first cap. I mean, I get what you're saying, but there is that kind of feeling that Rashford has earned his way back into the setup. Tuchel wants to make a bit of a statement. Waneri's going to get those opportunities later down the line. So I think that's really important. Owen says, a lot of talk on Sky being that they're prepped for the 115 verdict. Is there any rumblings in the media of what the feeling is or what the suspect outcomes might be? I can corroborate these claims that there is a sense that there could be a verdict soon on this topic, but we have absolutely no idea of what that will be. But certainly from what I've heard, that there is some rumblings that a verdict could be soon. I've been told, things like could come out today, and it hasn't. So like in previous days. So there could be something of a breakthrough on this thread soon, but there is no censor in at all. It's been one of the most highly guarded secrets, I think, of the sport, to be honest, in terms of what the verdict is. We all know about it, but in terms of what is going to happen, we don't have any thoughts at the moment. Orange Juice says City and Chelsea do usually produce the most academy talent, though they just more often than not sell them for profit. That's what I mean. It's about players that are going to break into that first team squad that we've been very fortunate with. Ant says we must get Winery and Miles Lewis-Skelly tied to long-term contracts. I see moving Skelly up to left wing and him becoming a vital player in the team. Saka on the right. I mean, certainly there's talks ongoing about contracts. Don't have to worry about that. There's a real confidence about those two signing proper 5-year deals, I think. John says, any truth in the rumours linking us with Barrios? And what are your thoughts on him? Seems to attack in the Spanish market. Yeah, again, a young player come through the Atletico Madrid Academy playing defensive midfield. The thing about Simeone is, and you heard this from Sid Lowe when he was on the channel, Simeone's always wanted that DM player, that DM figure, in his team. And he was often been brought players that it's not worked. Rodrigo de Paul, that Argentinian factor there, even though he came from Italy, and of course Andrea Berta would have had a role to play in that deal. But Barrios, who's come through the academy at the moment, has had the nod. Vermeeren, also another midfielder, come through in Belgium and then was bought by Atleti through kind of the recommendation of Andrea Berta, but did not work at all. Lasted, I think, 6 months, if that, and then was sold to RB Leipzig, where he currently has been playing relatively regularly. He's got 21 appearances so far this season. He has started to start a lot more games for Leipzig, but it didn't work out for him at Atleti. But yeah, Barrios, I haven't heard anything to say Arsenal are keen on him. I'd be very surprised if Atleti let him go. But with Berta's obviously coming to Arsenal, we expect maybe we'll start to see Arsenal look more so at the Spanish market more often for potential targets. Ollie says, I was in the academy and I was better than Winery and Lewis-Skelly, but the club let me go because I was making them jealous. Ollie, I'm struggling to believe you, mate. Sounds like a nice story, though. John says, considering Man City's investments in January, I think they'll get away with it. Money talks. Jack says, if we get the 2 league titles in the last 2 years, will you be happy? I mean, not really. Like, it would be like, yay. Hypothetically, if Man City were stripped of their titles in any kind of scenario there, hypothetically speaking, it's important to use words like this when we deal with legal matters. But if Arsenal were awarded the title for the last 2 seasons because they were stripped of Man City were stripped of their titles. But the problem is, Jack, is that the period of time that City are being investigated for is not that period. It's a period from before. So I think it's like, is it 2009? Man City investigated from 2009 to 2018. So from a 9-year period that is not when Arsenal are in title contention, or like missed out on a league. Yes, of course, the argument is that what they did in that time, everything they did in that period has contributed to what they've become and what they've won since that time. So there is that. But if they were stripped of titles, you'd think it would be stripped of that period, not afterwards. But I don't know. That's the thing, is nobody knows. No one knows what's going to happen at this stage. But would I be happy if Arsenal were gifted those 2 titles after Man City were hypothetically stripped of them? It would feel really hollow, wouldn't it? Like, it would feel really, really hollow. It would feel like you'd wasted time almost. There's part. So this might sound weird, but there's part of me that also hopes that they've not done anything wrong. It's a weird thing to say, but the reason why I say that is because I would have felt like all those years would have been such a waste of effort and energy and time. To know that somebody in the league had done something so significantly, allegedly, that would have given them such an advantage and broken those rules. It would have felt like those years of watching football just didn't mean as much as they should have done. Does that make sense? I'm trying to voice this opinion, but I don't think I'm doing a very good job of it. But there's part of me that feels like if they are found not guilty, it'll be like, okay, we move on. We move. All those years I watched Arsenal battle against City, it was two teams going head to head. But if they're found hypothetically guilty, it would almost feel like all those years of the sport had been a bit of a waste, So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've articulated that as well as I wanted to, but there is part of me that feels a little bit that way inclined about it. But yeah, I'd struggle to feel happy with those, Jack. I'd struggle to feel happy with them. I want to win. I want to win them because we've merited winning. And I know some people would say, well, we have because we were the team that finished the high points up the table with, hypothetically not breaking any rules. But I don't think I can take much from that. Soup says, I think they will award titles to other clubs because there will be a big void in the history books otherwise. Not that it will feel good to get those titles. I tell you what, I could foresee, if hypothetically that was to happen, I could foresee Arteta. When he did that press conference where he said, we've won. I think someone was like, you've won the FA Cup. And he was like, and two community shields. I can imagine him being like, so obviously you're yet to win the title. And he'd be like, well, no, we've won it twice. We were given those titles. You can see that happening, can't you? I would be far less kind of inclined. The only time I think I'd ever bring it up is in a if you ever get into one of those debates with those debilitatingly annoying kind of Arteta critics. Ronnie says, that's kind of like saying if you rob a bank, the cops will only take the money if you had during the robbery, but you can keep all the money that you are left with after the robbery. Yeah, I know what you're saying, Ronnie. It's like if you take everything away from what you got during that heist, but all of what you invested in that money that you stole, hypothetically, I keep saying these words, I'm just being so careful about this, that then obviously everything after that, it's as if it would have happened anyway, and obviously it wouldn't have done. Sophisticated Aleja says, this young man is a genius. Leave it or take it. Ronald says, does Sesko have a better technical ability? I mean, he's 21, so he's still developing, he's still improving as a player, but he definitely is a very impressive player technically, as well as being a very good target man. It's always a bit of a lazy assessment of Sesko to see really tall guy, target man, slow, not very good on the ball. When actually the reality is that couldn't be further from the truth. He's very technical. He's very good on the ball. He's got a good amount of speed about him as well. So there's actually a lot of Isak in Sesko for me, despite Sesko being the better player at present. RDM says, why are they doing the investigation late? Where is the accountability? I mean, it's not about doing it late. It's just about the collation of all that evidence to charge them. To then, you don't want to charge somebody until you've got enough evidence that you believe is going to absolutely nail them. You wouldn't go into, like, if you were, I watch plenty of 48 hours in police custody. You're never going to go to the Crown Prosecution Service and be like, I think I've got enough evidence, when the reality is that what you've got, you don't think is going to be enough to get the person that you're trying to, get, basically. So I know what you're saying about it. Why is it so late? But you have to build up a bulk of work, portfolios of evidence before you may set those charges going. Forder on Football says, surely the Premier League don't want them to be found guilty or punished, Tom. Why would they not, if they're the ones that brought the charges? Because it was the Premier League that have charged them. Why would they not? If they didn't want them to be found guilty, they wouldn't be the ones that brought the charges, mate. That doesn't make any sense. Owen says, it's going to look absolutely terrible on the league if they do lose this case. Yeah, for sure. I think it would look terrible on the Premier League if they were to lose the case. Ronzo Cal says, also City refused to cooperate for years, allegedly. John says, would you take the striker from Ipswich as a second striker to say Sesko or Isak? He seems to be a handful. He seems to be a handful and he's scoring regularly for a poorer team. Or Delap, you mean? I don't know about Delap. Obviously, I think there's a trap of falling into a bit of kind of a he doesn't have the name, so you don't rate him as highly. I think there's definitely a trap that people will fall into around Delap, and I think he's had a very good season. I'd be very curious to see what he would do in a better side. But I do feel like Arsenal needs to go for somebody else, somebody better. And of course, he has. I think Man City do have something of a buyback clause in that Delap deal as well. Jack says, did you hear that Connor Henderson, ex-academy player, is a new under-14s coach? I remember Connor Henderson coming through at Arsenal, Jack. Yeah. I've not heard that, though, so thanks for the tip. Izu says, who would you rather have in your squad for next season? Partey or Jorginho, Kivior or Zinchenko? I think they're all going to be gone, Izu, to be honest, mate. I think I've talked about the Partey Jorginho thing before. The issue with when we're talking about kind of like Partey, there's always that concern that he will have an injury that sees him missing for like 6 months, or maybe not 6 months, but certainly a large chunk of the season. It's just happened this season. He's obviously been available for pretty much the entirety, if not all of the season, and I think it's been his most available season. So, but there's always that concern that will come up again. But I think ultimately all of them are going to move on, aren't they? Kivior is I'd rather have Zinchenko than Kivior, without a doubt. Raf says, I think the Prem don't want an independent arbitrator. I think that's the main reason for the Premier League charging City. I doubt Sky want City to be charged, though, allegedly. Really bad optics as well. Arthur says, I don't want them to lose the case. They filled my life with joy by preventing Man United and Liverpool from winning the league. Ronald says, UEFA didn't charge City due to the 2-year limitation. Nick says, but wouldn't Spurs get given a title as well? Didn't they come second one year? Did they? I feel like Arsenal pipped them to second during the Leicester season. Did Spurs finish second behind City one year? I feel like I would know that. I feel like I would remember that. Maybe I would put it out of my mind. Spurs league finishes. Historical placements. Let's have a look, shall we? Did they finish second one year? Rank. Oh my goodness, they did. 2016-17. They finished second behind Chelsea. You will be glad to know. So, no, they finished second behind Chelsea. So you don't need to worry about Spurs being given a title. That is the only time they have finished second since... oh, my goodness me, I'm doing some scrolling here. Scroll in. 1967. It's the last time they finished second. What a club. Anyway, Jack says, I do feel Kivior is definitely unfilled potential. Unfortunately, it's just not going to work at Arsenal. It's not going to work with Kivior. So yeah, I can see everyone in the chat was saying, yeah, it's a bit scary that for a second. We all nearly thought that they might have a title given to him. John says, was disappointed with the comments by Chris Waddle about Ben White this week. Can't stand ex-players calling for current players never to be picked again. Oh, what's he said? Chris Waddle, Ben White. Let's have a look, shall we? I wouldn't bring Ben White back in, Waddle told 10Bet in a recent interview. He said he didn't want to be picked again, and he spat the dummy out, didn't he? So he's all right to play. So he wants to pick and choose his England career. Waddle can do one, to be honest. How short-sighted can you be? Absolutely no insight, no understanding of what went on in the whole situation. Absolutely no idea what's going on, but it's fine to put an opinion out while you're getting paid by a betting company, isn't it, to do so? Goodness gracious me. Awful. Anyway, I think we'll probably bring the show to an end there. I can't, honestly, the Ben White stuff is going to go mad, isn't it? It's going to go mad when he gets that call up again, eventually, when he gets called back up to the squad. But waffling Waddle, as they call him. Anyway, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you're new around here, notifications turned on. So you'll never miss a show. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, stay well, enjoy your weekend. I'll be back with you very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.